Hey, are you getting bored studying Japanese with a textbook? Do you want to improve your Japanese as quickly as possible without a teacher? Try out my audio course for free. The link is down below. Thank you.
はい、皆さん、こんにちは。Today we are gonna learn による And I'm gonna expand it and teach によって and ことによって as well. で、いつも通り最初によく使う表現を教えて、その後フォーマルな場面で使う表現を教えるので、よく使う表現だけを知りたい人はスキップしても大丈夫です。Okay, so による basically means it depends on something. So you can use nouns before による. For example, how do you say it depends on the country? It's 国による。国による。In English, you can just say it depends, but in Japanese, we have to say it depends on something. So for example, if I ask you, 一つお願いしてもいい? Can I ask you a favor? You can say, お願い事による。お願い事による。It depends on what you are asking. Or for example, if I ask you, 本当のことを言わないのは良くないと思う? 本当のことを言わないのは良くないと思う? And you want to say, it depends.As it depends on the situation, you can say 場合による、場合による or 状況による、状況による。So in Japanese, you need to specify what it depends on. So it's something による。And they don't really mention this in a textbook, but this is really useful, so let me teach this. So you can also use による with indirect question sentences. Like for example, it depends on what you want to do.You can say 何をしたいかによる何をしたいかによる So I think you already know this, but whenever it's an indirect question sentence, like I don't know when I will go, you need か after when I will go. So it's いつ行くかわからないいつ行くかわからない Or for example, I haven't decided where I will go yet. You can say どこに行くかまだ決めてないどこに行くかまだ決めてない。So it's the same with it depends on what you want to do. You're using indirect question sentence. 何をしたいかによる。何をしたいかによる。For example, how do you say it depends on when we will go? It depends on when we will go. How do you think you can say it? It's いつ行くかによる。いつ行くかによる。Okay, another example. It depends on how many people will come. For example, you are in a supermarket and you are asking, how many beers do we need? How much do we have to buy? And they say, it depends on how many people will come. How do you think you can say it? It's 何人来るかによる。何人来るかによる。Okay, so when you want to say it depends on what, it depends on when, it depends on how many people, you need to use か before による something かによる And we also say it depends on whether. For example, it depends on whether I can take a vacation. You can say 休みが取れるかどうかによる休みが取れるかどうかによるBut actually, this どうか can be omitted, so you hear people say 休みが取れるかによるSo, かどうか means if or whether in English. Like, for example, I don't know if I will go. You can say, 行くかどうかわからない or 行くかわからない So, when you want to say it depends on whether, it depends on if, you can say informal form of the verb plus かどうかによる For example, how do you say it depends on if we can cancel? How do you think you can say it?It's キャンセルできるかどうかによる。キャンセルできるかどうかによる。But again, we tend to omit this どうか because we want to make it shorter. So we tend to say キャンセルできるかによる。キャンセルできるかによる。Okay, next. Do you know how to say it's different depending on the person? It's 人によって違う。人によって違う。So when you want to say depending on in English, you use によって in Japanese. For example, how do you say opinions differ from person to person or opinions are different depending on the person? How do you think you can say it? It's 人によって意見が違う。人によって意見が違う。Or how do you say perspectives differ from person to person? It's 人によって考え方が違う。人によって考え方が違う。So when you want to say something differs depending on something, you can say something によって違う。But you can also say something は人によって違う。Like 考え方は人によって違う。As for perspective, it differs from person to person. For example, how to say laws differ from country to country. 皆さん、do you know how to say laws in Japanese? It's 法律。法律。So how do you say laws differ from country to country? 皆さん。It's 国によって法律が違う。国によって法律が違う。Or 法律は国によって違う。法律は国によって違う。Also, you can use によって when you want to say, for example, I will decide if I will go depending on the weather. なんて言うと思いますか皆さん。やってみよう。It's 行くかどうかは天気によって決める。行くかどうかは天気によって決める。そう、行くかどうかは whether we will go 天気によって決める。We will decide depending on the weather. For example, how do you say I will decide whether I will go or not depending on how I feel tomorrow? Okay, do you know how to say how I feel tomorrow? 皆さん We actually say my feeling tomorrow, which is 明日の気分。明日の気分。So 気持ち is more like my feeling, like to tell my feeling. 気持ちを伝える。But 気分 is more like mood. So how I feel tomorrow is 明日の気分。So how do you say I will decide whether I will go or not depending on how I feel tomorrow? It's 行くかどうかは明日の気分によって決める。行くかどうかは明日の気分によって決める。And if you want to say, I will decide where I will go depending on how I feel tomorrow, you can say, どこに行くかは明日の気分によって決める。どこに行くかは明日の気分によって決める。And one important thing is that sometimes we say, によっては、like, 場合によっては中止になるかもしれない。場合によっては中止になるかもしれない。So, よっては is often used to express a possibility like this might happen depending on this. For example, how do you say depending on the weather, they might postpone it. Do you know how to say to be postponed or they will postpone 皆さん It's 延期になる。延期になる。So, 延期する is to postpone something and to be postponed is 延期になる。So how do you say, depending on the weather, they might postpone it. It might be postponed. It's 天気によっては延期になるかもしれない。天気によっては延期になるかもしれない。Also, によっては is used to express like, sometimes this happens depending on this. For example, I sometimes work until 10 depending on the day. You can say, 日によっては10時まで働くこともある。日によっては10時まで働くこともある。So, こともある means sometimes this happens. Like for example, 失敗することもある。Sometimes we fail. So, 10時まで働くこともある。Sometimes I work until 10. So, によっては with what particle is often used with かもしれない and こともある。So, when you see なおによっては in a textbook or somewhere, it's usually used to express depending on this, this might happen. Like 場合によっては中止になるかもしれない。Or depending on this, this sometimes happen. 日によっては10時まで働くこともある。Okay, little bonus is that when you want to say it's up to someone, you can say someone 次第。someone 次第。Like ミク次第。ミク次第 or 行くかどうかはミク次第 So when you want to say to someone, it's up to you, you can use their name, like 先次第. We don't really say ミクによる, so use 次第 when you want to say it's up to someone. Actually, 次第 is JOPT N2 level, so I'm not gonna go into that too deep, but I want to mention that 次第 is also used as it depends on. So you can actually say, for example, 天気次第 or コロナの状況次第 instead of 天気による or コロナの状況による. So explain a little bit about 次第. 次第 is more like it's up to something and that will decide. Like 天気次第 is the weather will decide. I don't have control over it. The weather will decide. It's up to weather. Or コロナの状況次第. It's up to the situation of COVID-19. I cannot decide. Okay, from here, it's more formal expressions, but we do use it sometimes when speaking. So first, you can use ことによって to say by doing. For example, by using the app, it becomes easier to access it. You can say, アプリを使うことによってアクセスしやすくなる。アプリを使うことによってアクセスしやすくなる。Or for example, you can expose yourself to different perspectives by living abroad. You can say, 海外に住むことによっていろんな考え方に触れることができる。海外に住むことによっていろんな考え方に触れることができる。Actually, to convey this sentence, you can just say, if you use the app, it becomes easier to access it. アプリを使うと or アプリを使ったらアクセスしやすくなる。アプリを使うとアクセスしやすくなる。Or if you live abroad, you can expose yourself to different perspectives. 海外に住むといろんな考え方に触れることができる。海外に住むといろんな考え方に触れることができる。And this if sentence pattern are more common when speaking, but you will definitely see this dictionary form plus ことによって when reading or in a formal situations. And you also might see it in JOPT, so it's good to know it. And we do use it sometimes when speaking. Okay, from here, I will introduce more written expressions that you don't really use when speaking, but you will see in the JOPT. And I will show you other more natural ways to express it as well, so you can learn something new. Okay, so you can use によって to talk about the cause of something, like because of in English, but this is really formal, so I will teach you the alternative for when you're speaking. Okay, for example, the event got cancelled because of COVID-19. So how do you say to get cancelled, 皆さん? It's 中止になる or キャンセルになる So it's コロナによってイベントが中止になった。コロナによってイベントが中止になった。But when speaking, we would naturally say コロナでイベントがキャンセルになった。コロナでイベントがキャンセルになった。So when we say because of something, we usually use the particle like 事故で電車が遅れた。事故で電車が遅れた。But when it's a person, we would use のせいで。Let's say you want to say, we were late because of you to your brother. You can say, お兄ちゃんのせいで遅れた。お兄ちゃんのせいで遅れた。So when it's a person, it's someone のせいで。someone のせいで。But when it's an accident or a disaster, we would use the particle to say because of. And によって has the same meaning, but it's only used in written Japanese. Okay, next. によると or によれば means according to. For example, according to the news, it's going to snow tomorrow. It's ニュースによると明日は雪が降るらしいですよ。ニュースによると明日は雪が降るらしいですよ。So usually when you tell someone what you heard, saw in the news, we would use らしい at the end of the sentence, but this によると and によれば are formal. So if I'm telling this to my friend, I would say ニュースで見たんだけど明日雪降るらしいよ。ニュースで見たんだけど 明日雪降るらしいよ。So, んだけど is used to bring up a topic and actually we use this a lot. So even though it has けど in it, it doesn't always mean but. It's more like and. So for example, if you want to say according to my mom, お母さんによると sounds too formal and we don't say that. So we would say お母さんから聞いたんだけど、お母さんから聞いたんだけど or お母さんが言ってたんだけど、お母さんが言ってたんだけど、like お母さんから聞いたんだけど、豆乳は体にいいらしいよ。お母さんから聞いたんだけど、豆乳は体にいいらしいよ。or お母さんが言ってたんだけど、豆乳は体にいいらしいよ。お母さんが言ってたんだけど、豆乳は体にいいらしいよ。So when you want to say according to something, instead of saying によると like textbook teaches you, use んだけど like ニュースで見たんだけど someone から聞いたんだけど or someone が言ってたんだけど etc. Okay, 皆さん I hope you enjoyed this video and if you liked it, please hit the like button. And if you like to improve your Japanese fast but you don't really have time to study or you simply don't like to sit down and study with a textbook, please check out my shadowing audio product. With this course, you will not only learn Japanese verb conjugation and sentence patterns fast, but also you will improve your speaking skill. I teach the most powerful grammar that you need to express yourself in Japanese, and I'm also teaching a lot of vocabs and expressions that are actually used a lot in real life and sentences that you would actually use in day-to-day life. And the focus is to help you connect with your friends in Japanese. So I do teach how to say things formally in the audio, but unlike a normal textbook, the sentences are all in casual Japanese and you can listen to it anytime, anywhere. So my students listen to my audios while they are exercising, cooking, commuting, doing the normal chores in the house. So even if you don't have time to sit down and study, you can still learn Japanese with me. No excuse. Whether you are a basic level learner who needs a tool to self-study Japanese in a fun way, or an intermediate learner who is struggling to communicate in Japanese even though you know the basic and a lot of sentence patterns and a lot of words, this course will get you to the point where you can confidently communicate and express yourself in Japanese and connect with people in Japanese. Okay, here is what people who use this course say.
So I've been using Miku's Real Japanese products for a couple of months now and they are incredible. So I had no idea how beneficial it was to be speaking and saying out loud Japanese words and sentences until I started listening to a shadowing audio on the way to work. And while I do get a few funny looks on the train for whispering some Japanese phrases, I actually have, my progress has shot up crazy amounts. If you are looking for a way to improve your Japanese, I'd 100% recommend looking into Sensei Miku's products, and honestly, she's so lovely and you will not be disappointed.
I've been traveling to Japan for over 20 years. I've lived there for 4 years. I'm currently the president of our Japan office. One thing I really like and appreciate and has helped me personally is in every audio she goes beyond just the pure lesson. She expands upon the concepts and the vocabulary, giving you background information. This truly has helped me to remember the lesson better. And more importantly, it's been really overall a fun and enjoyable experience. Of all the lessons that I've taken over the years, Miku Sensei's practical approach to teaching has really finally helped me to understand the everyday Japanese that people speak 80% of the time.
Years ago, I fell in love with Japan, and ever since I've been trying to master the language. But along the way, I know I've missed and forgotten so many things. But Miku Sensei's lessons and her shadowing audio drills are so easy to understand. She's always so encouraging, and she really knows how to keep it fun too. Even in the most elementary audio lessons, I always find things that I'd forgotten or had never really fully understood. And speech patterns that were once mechanical now seem to flow more and more naturally. It feels so good when a Japanese friend says, "Wow, it seems like your Japanese has jumped to the next level."
Okay, so if you really want to improve your Japanese fast and save a lot of time while self-studying Japanese, please check it out. The link is in that description box. I put a lot of love and my passion to teach Japanese into this course, and it took me thousands of hours to create this course. So I hope it's gonna help you to express yourself in Japanese, and most importantly, I hope it's gonna help you to connect with your friends in Japanese. Okay, so see you in the next video. またね。見てくれてありがとう。